Okay, Year 10, today we're doing lesson 11, what improvements have been made to treatments available today. So what we're actually looking at today is we're thinking about the contributions of the NHS and the advancement in technology and how that's kind of helped medicine in the modern period. So we're looking at the time frame 1900 to present. So when you think about the modern period and you're thinking about treatments, you need to really be thinking about, well, what kind of things are available to you now? Obviously, when we split up our kind of learning, we think about diagnosis, going to your GP, blood tests, the things you would have done in the previous lesson. We kind of have an idea of our prevention methods in terms of vaccinations, and today we're looking specifically at treatments. And we're going to be comparing it to the previous times and seeing how that's changed. And the common theme that you should be able to see here, there's two big themes here. Number one is that there is a change in government intervention, and that comes in the form of the NHS. And there's also an advancement in technology. And both of those combined cause serious improvements in treatments that are available. So before you even start lesson 11, so it's quite a short lesson, your teacher would have set you a Google Form homework. Now, I would like you to do this homework before you do this lesson, and that's because it's going to help you for the next three lessons, so lesson 11, lesson 12, and lesson 13. So you should do this before you set out to do those lessons. I'm going to talk you through the homework, and then you just pause the video, crack on with the homework, and then come back to find out what to do in the lesson. So the actual homework looks like this, and it essentially what you're looking at is you're looking at these 3 points, and that's the information that you're going to gain in this homework. So number one, how the government increased care for the public before the NHS in the period 1900 to 48. So before the creation of the NHS, which happened in 1948, what were the government doing to help people and to improve public health? You then will be looking at why the NHS was set up in 1948. So, what caused it to actually be created? Why was there kind of this concept of, looking after people and free healthcare, which is essentially what the NHS is. And you should be able to see from there, you might just notice from the day itself, but this is post the Second World War. So you will kind of learn in this homework section the idea of roles of individuals, government intervention, war, again, using our factors and our language about our factors to really understand the cause of why the NHS was set up. And then what the NHS was like early on, because it's different to what it is now. Some stuff that the NHS used to provide free originally has been privatised. So you, for example, above the age of 18, if you work a certain, get paid a certain amount, you will have to pay for eye test, pay for, the dentist. And originally that was not the case. So just going through the homework, I'm just going to explain to you what to kind of do practically. The first one is match the letter to the numbers below. Write your answers like this, equals A equals 3. So all you're doing is looking on the left here, reasons for change, and you're trying to match up the reason with the explanation. So you're going to read through each one, then figure out, well, which one's the title. It gives you an example already that A equals 3. So I would just write down here A equals 3 and then move on, write the next few answers, depending on which reason is being explained. You then have to look at some liberal reforms. So the Liberal government was the government who was in charge in the early 1900s, and they're not really a political party anymore. Really now, but back then they were the main people who ran the country. And here are some reforms that they've done. Now, all of these reforms, the idea of it is, how does it benefit the public? How does it benefit, a bunch of things? So work, health, education. And what you have to do is you have to answer the question. So which liberal reforms provide good housing? Read through them, tick them off. Which liberal reforms benefit children? Read them, tick them off. You'll be able to see how many, because it gives you how many points is possible for it. So obviously pick 2 there, pick 4 on this next one. Which liberal reforms benefit workers? Pick 3. Then after reading through all the reforms, I want you to explain why these reforms will help improve the health of the public. So you have to think, a bit outside the box here. How might improving education or improving food in schools help public? How might, making sure there's better housing improve the public, improve for the public? And then remember, this is early, 1900s up till 1948. We then are going to be looking at the NHS. So this question here, question 6, asks you, what does this quote mean? And this is a kind of phrase that is used when you think about the NHS, especially when it was first created. And the quote itself is from the cradle to the grave. Now, the NHS was introduced to take care of people from the cradle to the grave. Now, I want you to make inferences based on that source. What do you think that suggests about the NHS? What is its purpose? What does it do? There's also some context there for you to read to help you. After you've done that, you're looking at 3 main reasons why the NHS was introduced, and you just have to think about which one is about the impact of individuals, read each one, pick out a letter. Again, do the same thing with which one is about the impact of the Second World War. It's a little bit small here, so you can just go up here. Which one talks about the Second World War, A, B, or C. Then lastly, which one is about pressure from the people, and do the same thing. Once you have finished, I would like you to think about what the NHS was like early on and pick a statement to reflect that. List the services that NHS provides now, so nursing is one. What else can you kind of get on the NHS? How do they help you? What do they make sure happens for you? Think about from the day you are born, or even when, before you're born, how does that help mothers? And then all the kind of services it provides, and just list them for me. Then our last one, what was so revolutionary about the creation of the NHS? And use examples to support your point. So why was it such a big deal? The creation of the NHS, think back to the quote that I mentioned earlier. Why was it such a big deal? Now, once you have finished this, you can then move on to the lesson. Now, the first activity, I'm just going to show you quickly in your booklet, over here is looking at treatments over time, and the task is here. All you have to do is use the images and label the treatments in medicine over time. Really test yourself, but obviously if you need help, look through your booklets. What are treatments in the Middle Ages? Label them. The Renaissance, the Industrial period, and then in the modern period, using the images, can you think of any treatments that are available in the modern period? Think about what you kind of learned in Western Front. Think about what is accessible in hospitals now. How do people get treated for specific diseases? You may know, for example, how you get treated for cancer. You may know how you get treated for kidney failure. Have a think and write them down. Again, you can just label around the box or in the box. Before you do that, like I said, please make sure you do the homework. Now, once you have finished that, let me just get it back up. What you have over here is treatments. So obviously you would have written down what you think, but then here are some actual treatments that are available. So we have treatments that are in the middle, and then on the outside you have the impacts of those treatments. So what you have to do is literally just read through each treatment and then try to match it up to the impact that it had. So I'm just gonna show you on here just to make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, that's frozen. So I'll go back on the booklet. So for example, I might see here, okay, heart pacemakers. This technology helps regulate the heartbeat. It is surgically implanted into the chest. So pacemaker is a treatment to regulate heartbeat. Now I would look around and think which one's talking about regulating heartbeat, which one's talking about pacemaker, and then I would do an arrow. So you obviously should have your booklets on you, but if you don't, then you can just do the online copy. And do an arrow to explain which one links. So over here it says this pacemaker sends electrical pulses to the heart and keeps it beating regularly and not too slowly. Now I would like you to go even further and then write down what is the impact of that even more. So I would like you to write with the sentence starters next to these boxes, this meant that. So what does that mean for treatments? If that's allowing the heart to not, to beat regularly and not too slowly, this meant that people who have anomalies in their heartbeat can regulate, and these can be detected. Okay, so just a little sentence just to explain even further what would the impact be on someone's health if they had that sort of treatment. And I want you to go through each one and make sure that you're able to do that. Once you finish that, I want you to think about which treatment, sorry about the kind of PowerPoint being funny there, but which treatments are medical treatments and which ones are surgical treatments. And then as a challenge, you can do number 2 or number 3. So which treatments have developed from the 20th century and explain the importance. That one we've already done. So medical treatments and surgical treatments. So to understand that, we have to know what the difference is. A surgical treatment, and it's a lot easier once you look at your examples here, a surgical treatment would obviously be something that is directly helping in surgery, okay, something that requires surgery as a treatment, whereas a medical treatment might not necessarily require that surgery. So you need to go around and label near these little boxes here which one is which. Then as a challenge, like I said, you can do which treatments have developed from the 20th century. So obviously we now are in the 21st century. Which treatments have developed from then? So if we were to look at them here, for example, how might plastic surgery have developed? Think about it. What are the kind of changes that have happened from the 20th century? So when you're thinking about the 20th century, you're obviously thinking about the 1900s. So what are the developments that have been made since then? But like I said, that is a challenge. And once you have finished that, there are 2 questions that you need to ask. And like I said, your homework is going to directly help you with these 2 questions. So the first question is, what is the big difference between treatments during the 20th century and those of earlier centuries? So like I said, you should be able to kind of see the common theme here is that there is a serious technological advancement. And that is the big difference. And when you kind of recognize that, you need to be able to give the specific examples to show what the difference is. Use the starter task to help you out to do that. You may, recognize other things, maybe government intervention. You may recognize in terms of funding, things are different, the availability of things. And that's what you need to do for that first question. Then our second one is, why is the NHS so important in providing treatments? What does it do? And again, I want you to think about that quote from Cradle to Grave. Why is it, why is it so important? Why, as a country, we're well known for the NHS. Why was it so revolutionary? So that question in your homework can directly help you. Now, there is an explain why question, which I'm happy for you to attempt to plan if you want, which says, explain why there was a rapid change in the treatment of illness in Britain during the 20th century. So why, that essentially reads, why was there change in treatments during the 20th century? So what changed? And that's obviously comparing to the previous time. And it gives you your 2 stimulus points, NHS and high-tech treatment. So you can plan this in the lesson summary. I'm happy for you to do that. If you would like to, think about, well, what you're just kind of just a sentence explaining that. So I might say, the most important reason there was a change in the treatment of illness in Britain was because of, and then I want you to pick out 2 factors of medicine as to why that might be. Why have they, what's caused this change in treatments? And I have mentioned throughout the lesson what that could possibly be. The reason why I'm not asking you to write this up is because you will be next week getting a set of practice questions for next Friday, in which you're going to be answering 3 types of questions on Google Forms anyway. But if you'd like to practice, think about what you need to write. Can you also write down in the summary box the structure that you need for a explain why question, just so you remember? So an explain why question, please pause the video and then write down your summary. Okay, so an explain why question should be 2 or 3 paragraphs using petal, with the kind of sentence starter of being the most important reason / another reason, and it needs to be factor focused. And some factors that we have in medicine are role of individuals, government, attitudes, sorry about the typos, seeking improvement, communication, teamwork, industry, etc. All those kind of factors that you would have seen in your history classroom near the board. What are they? What are the factors, and what factors contribute to that rapid change in treatment anyway? And once you have finished, that is lesson 11 done. Thank you.